Welcome to the Home Pro Podcast, your source for expert insights and practical tips from the leading minds in home services. Get ready to conquer your local market with your host and founder of Big Fish Local, Seth Evans.
Seth Evans here. I am the host of the Home Pro Podcast, where we share wisdom from top service professionals and coaches to help you become the big fish in your local pond. Join us for insights and strategies that drive growth and success. This episode is brought to you by Big Fish Local, your trusted partner in navigating the digital landscape. Our dedicated team specializes in creating impactful digital marketing strategies tailored to your business needs. From optimizing your website for search engines to enhancing your presence on social media, we are here to help you thrive in your local market. Discover the potential of your business with Big Fish Local's comprehensive marketing solutions. Find more on how we can boost your online visibility and drive growth at our website, bigfishlocal.org. Today, I'll be interviewing Gregg Nelson, owner of Rent-A-Monkey Tree Service. Gregg's been in the industry for about 6 years and has owned his own tree service company for the last 5 years, and they're currently doing roughly $3 million in sales. Congratulations. And their goal is to be doing $20 million in the next 5 to 7 years, and they're well on their way to accomplishing that goal. So, Gregg, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. Before we dive into the main part of the interview, I did want to give a quick shout out to Matt Naylor from Beehive Plumbing, who introduced us. And so, hey, Matt, if you're listening to the show, thanks so much for this introduction and for getting us connected.
Definitely. Yeah, I really appreciate Matt. He's given me a lot of great advice. So
he is. He's a really good guy. And we worked with him as well for a number of years. So, well, Gregg, I was just curious to hear about your story. I know our listeners really like to hear from business owners who have been doing this for a while, who have seen some success in their business. They've learned some, important business lessons along the way. But if we go back to the beginning, how did it all get started for you? How did you get into this?
Yeah. So I started when I was in college. I would do freelance landscape work. I was working for another landscape company when I was in college. Bounced around a little bit after college and moved out to Utah from Minnesota in 2019. And I was trying to get a job in outdoor gear manufacturing. Really enjoyed the outdoor gear industry. Liked manufacturing. Liked process improvement, lean management, that kind of thing. I was out here for probably about 2 months and wasn't able to find any sort of job opportunity in that space and was just straight out of money. And my wife and I had to borrow $500 from my brother to pay rent. And I found an ad for a company that did line clearance, so power line clearance. It was offering $15 an hour or something like that. And so I took it, started in the tree industry in April of 2019. Moved through the ranks really quickly, fell in love with the tree industry, just climbing trees every day and that kind of thing. And became a foreman for that company, and then left and got picked up by a residential company that offered a little bit more pay. And then from there, it just didn't really work out from a company that wanted to grow. They just kind of wanted to stay small and have big ambitions. And so I left there and started Rent-A-Monkey with a partner of mine. And so we've been in now for a little over 4.5 years, 5 years now. And it's been great. It's been challenging. It's been hard work, but it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. I really appreciate hearing that story, how you kind of, you went up through the ranks, you saw some challenges with where that business was and where they really wanted to be or didn't want to be, and took the reins and decided to make it happen because of your ambition. I bet a lot of folks listening to this could probably relate to that in some ways. And I think you can really tell the difference between a business that's led by someone who really enjoys the industry and they're really passionate about it versus someone who's just in it for the money or just in it, as a job. So I think that really shines through. What do you think it is about this particular industry for you? You said climbing trees and just being outdoors, like what is it that brings you to life, that brings you joy in this industry?
Yeah. I would say probably one of the biggest ones. There's like probably two or three main key points. One, like you said, being outside is just super fun. I love being outside, love camping, love hiking, rock climbing, snowboarding, all of the outdoor activities. So being able to kind of incorporate my outdoor activities into my work life, was by far number one. I mean, no, every kid loves climbing trees, and I just never got out of that phase. And so, and then on top of that, you throw a chainsaw into the mix, and you add a fear factor to it, and it becomes adrenaline rush day in and day out, and it's just a blast. It's kind of the hidden secret of tree work is like the guys that go up into the trees. Those guys come from action sports backgrounds, and so it's just a crew of people that I fit in well as well. And then the second side of it is like we do our job. The way our daily production looks is we do roughly 2 to 3, sometimes 4 jobs a day. And so it's instant gratification to a job well done. And so we hit that dopamine rush of like we get done with a tree and it looks great, or we get done with the removal and everything's perfect and everything went well. Like that's a rush that you get multiple times throughout the day. And so I think that's another big portion of why I love this industry as well. So hitting all of my outdoor hobbies and activities that I like to do, mixing that with work, and then instant gratification by doing multiple jobs a day.
Greg, you mentioned that a lot of the guys who are climbing trees and who are out there in the field, they're a lot like you. I've always thought that it's really helpful and important to build a business with people who share some of the same values, some of the same interests, just so you can really authentically be who you are. Have you found any challenges with that where since a lot of you guys are, kind of on the same page, or do you feel like you're missing any other viewpoints or diversity from that? Or do you feel like it's actually helpful in this situation, that you got the right people in the right seats?
Um, I think so. What we've found is that a lot of times guys that have been in the industry for a long time have a lot of bad habits. They've gotten away from doing those fun activities outside of work, and so it's not as enjoyable to be around those types of people. Whereas the guys we've brought in, a lot of our guys don't have prior tree experience. I mean, we have a couple that have quite a bit of experience, and I think they're a little bit more of a unicorn. But our guys that we have now, coming from action sports backgrounds like skateboarding or snowboarding or dirt biking or rock climbing, there's a lot of repetition in getting good at those sports. It's a lot of hard work and dedication to get good at those sports. And so that translates very easily into the tree industry where, teaching someone to be a climber is not a 2-week process. It's not a 2-month process. It's a multi-year process. I mean, we have a rank structure in our business there's 5 ranks in the climbers area. And so you've got climber 1, climber 2, 3, 4, and 5. And to get to climber level 5, it takes years. I mean, you really have to be a master of your trade. And I think the action sports works very well to breed those types of guys because it's that constant repetition. It's the hard work. It's the self-awareness, the body positioning, and the self survivability. I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but basically making sure that you're not going to die up in the tree because trees are always trying to kill you.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I was thinking back to when you first started the business in that first year or two. Everyone always has some really interesting stories from those early days and what things were like as you said you were going from working in a business to now you're working on the business, like trying to figure out how to do this thing. What were those early days like for you?
Yeah. Man, I would love to say I worked on the business in the early days. I feel like we're coming up on 5 years, and I feel like I'm just now starting to be able to work on the business on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
But in the early days, I mean, we started out with zero funding, zero, the funding was the emergency cash reserve I had in my bank account. That was our business funding. And so we started with a beat up old Sprinter van with a duct taped yard sign to the side of it for our marketing. I mean, it was horrendous. I can't imagine why people ever said yes to letting us come work at their house with the way it looked in the beginning. A lot of it, we started out doing no cleanup jobs, just trash and trees on the ground, and then the homeowner would clean them up until finally, we had too many people asking for cleanup jobs, and we moved into renting trailers and then buying trailers and then buying the equipment we have now and that kind of thing. But yeah, I would say it was a grind in the beginning because I would go out, I would do the estimates in the morning, I would do work in the afternoon, or vice versa. And so, if I had to work in the morning and then do estimates in the afternoon, I'd have to go home, shower, change, look professional for the estimate, then come home, work on marketing, work on books, work on equipment, work on gear. And so it was a lot of long tiring hours in the beginning. I mean, it's still long, tiring hours. I'm not going to say it's any less hours now, but yeah, it was pretty wild going from climbing a tree and answering the phone and saying, "Hey, do you mind if I call you back? Because I'm 40 feet in the air right now trying to take a tree down, and we can set up an estimate when I get done with this tree." So versus now having an office team and a sales team and that kind of thing.
Wow, that's really relatable for me. But I don't want to take too much time sharing my story, but it was my business started with me charging $5,000 to my credit card with a hope and a prayer that this thing was going to work out, and then working late nights on the computer trying to do this thing. So, and I bet a lot of other folks can kind of relate to those early days too. But what about or were there some big turning points throughout the years, like moments you can look back on and say, okay, yeah, when this thing happened, that was a big change for us, or that was a really big help to our business?
Um, I would say the changes all came through massive mistakes. The good old saying of all safety policies are written in blood. I mean, there's a real big reason for that. And so I'd say a lot of our changes, like we have a very seasonal business. In wintertime, it drops off the face of the earth. And so a lot of it was like we can experiment with growth through the summer, but then we kind of have to teeter off anything, come October, November, because we know that it's going to slow down, and trying different marketing strategies, trying different personnel strategies, different equipment strategies. I would say the thing that's probably made the biggest shift so far is our standardization of each crew. So running a standard 3-man crew with the same equipment and on every crew. No longer using chippers. So a lot of people are like, "Hey, can we have some of the chips or from your wood chipper?" I'm like, "Well, we don't actually run chippers anymore." We found chippers to be costly in maintenance and upkeep, and they constantly go down. And whereas we run grapple trucks now, which are big, large debris trucks with hydraulic arms on the back of them that load all the debris into the body. So it's all exposed hydraulic hoses. It's easier to work on and maintain and replace. So we have less downtime. I'd say that's probably been the biggest one since we've gotten bigger. In the beginning stages, when we were, before we had a CRM, and we were running everything off of Google Calendar, there was a lot of mistakes made because Google Calendar isn't designed to run a company. It's designed to be someone's schedule. And so I think a CRM was probably the first biggest turning point when we got onto House Call Pro, which is the CRM that we use now, allowing us to invoice, schedule, work orders, follow-ups, sales, all of that, and then having the metrics in that to be tracked. I'd say if anyone's not using a CRM, that's the first thing I would do in a business if I were to start over. First thing I would do is find the right CRM to use, because the CRMs give you all the data you need to be able to run a business.
Yeah, I think what you just said there is really key. It's amazing how much those types of tools can help you stay organized and just solve a lot of problems you don't even know that you have until you have the CRM set up. And it's like, oh wow, I had no idea this stuff could happen automatically, or that I'd be able to see this level of data, or unless you, like you said, pay the price in blood to find out that
Hmm.
things just aren't working in the best way. So, are there any other big changes that you noticed that brought traction or helped with growth, or maybe were milestones along the way?
Yeah, definitely. So in 2022, we put on our second crew. And I just hired people that I thought were going to be a good fit, but I didn't have a hiring process in place. I didn't have a vetting process in place. I didn't, I just found guys who said they knew how to do tree work and threw them into the fire, and unfortunately watched them burn. And I think having a actual hiring process and being in a position where you don't just need to fill a role with a body, but you can take your time with a process in place to find the top tier employees that you need. Because like a top tier employee, so an A employee will produce 50 to 100% more than a B level employee will produce. And I would say if anyone who has that guy on their team who just produces way more than everybody else knows that on a regular basis. And I think when you can find a process that finds those guys on a regular basis, you don't need as many quote unquote bodies. Like you, like, well, I mean, for lack of better terms, I mean, we're in the tree industry, we kill trees. So like I'm looking for killers. And when it comes to the war of business, like I want killers. I don't want bodies to throw into the as cannon fodder. I want guys who can come in here and slay day in and day out at a much higher rate. And what I think a lot of people have a problem with is that they don't pay those guys accordingly. They don't pay them what they're worth. And you don't have to pay them twice as what the next guy does. But you can pay them 50% more and they're going to produce twice as much as a B level. And so I think that's where a lot of guys think, oh, well, they're only worth just a little bit more, but even though they're producing twice as much. And I think that's the biggest one that I failed to see in the beginning. And when we made our shift to a standardized hiring process, we're able to, and always be on the lookout for those guys. So that way, when that opening comes, and then making an opening when you do find one of those guys. That was probably one of the biggest lessons. At the end of 2022, we had a big group of just bodies who caused one problem after another. And all I was doing, I became a professional firefighter. And that's all I was doing was putting out fires every day. And it got so bad to where I basically just fired everyone who wasn't either there from the beginning and I knew was solid, or had just come in and it was solid. But I got rid of all the cancer. I got rid of all of the the slackers, all of the guys who were just causing problems. And we weren't going to hire anyone going into winter. It was October. And we found a guy who applied, and went through I had just created our standard hiring process. And I'm not going to lie, like I got lucky when this guy came in. But he went through a hiring process and we didn't have a position, but I made sure to make a position available. And he's, one of our top producers. And I think that gave me a standard to then go off of for future hires. And which I got lucky with, but I think if you create a standard hiring process and you put everyone through it, you'll start to see the people that aren't worth hiring.
Yeah, that's really key. We had a team member leave unexpectedly just due to some like family emergency. And I really needed that position filled. And we had the opportunity to hire for that position, but I knew all of these candidates were just going to be warm bodies to fill the position. And they would not have been playing anywhere near the level of that team member who had to leave. And so it took us 6 months to find the right candidate to fulfill that position. But now that we have, they are just knocking it out of the park. Like it was totally worth the wait. And I know I've made that mistake in the past where we've hired someone just to fill the seat, and sure, maybe they can do, the job in some way, shape, or form. But if they're like a C level or B level player, they're just producing at such a lower level, then it's almost like you're wasting your money and your time and your energy and extra training and management, all of that. So when you get the right person, it's just amazing how many problems that can solve. Again, problems you may not even know you had until you face them. So
Yeah. Like I yeah, couldn't agree more. The best way I've heard it put was by, I believe, Tommy Mello with he owns A1 Garage Doors. And he talks about how, the worst employee is a good employee. And what he means by that is, a C-level employee who's going to be, let's call them the bad employee. Like, they're easy to get rid of. They're easy to see. They're not producing well. They have a terrible attitude. Whatever it is, they're easy to fire because we know they're a bad employee. A great employee is going to produce at a high level and is going to solve problems before they arise. And they're great. They're going to push the company forward. A good employee is the worst employee because a good employee isn't going to push the company forward, isn't going to better themselves. All they're going to do is maintain at a constant pace. And for some people, that's great. To me, that's terrible because I need everyone on the team pulling the company forward, not just maintaining where they're at and not actually getting any better. And so that's why, having even B team players are just not anywhere. Like, it's worth putting in 6 months to find that right person because they'll easily make up that 6 months. Whereas if you put in a B level player, you're never going to grow.
Yep, you are exactly right on that. Have you, looking back, what's a challenge that you had to overcome as you've grown this, either personally or professionally?
Ooh. I think personally, being an entrepreneur, being a driver, I personally is the biggest lesson I probably had to learn was people aren't me. And that's not to say that you should ever lower your standards, but it's not their business. And so they're never going to care as much, even your top tier employees, unless you can create some sort of like equity earned in structure, which typically is not recommended until you're doing 2 to 5 million in EBITDA. And so learning that everyone's not me and that the business isn't theirs, and so that they're not going to be motivated in the same way that I am, and reaching out and trying to learn how people are motivated has probably been the biggest personal and or professional. I don't like to say personal and professional is different because in my mind, my personal and professional is so tied together that I can't see the difference. But I would say that's probably what it is understanding people and their level of motivation and care towards, whatever it is, whether it's business or personal growth or whatever. I love to see my guys grow and get better, whatever it is they're doing, whether it's rock climbing, personal finances, investments, or, stuff, climbing, tree work, that kind of thing. I love to see them grow and I love to see them push themselves, and trying to learn how to motivate them to do that stuff as well as not just learn how to grow internally, and be motivated internally has been probably my favorite thing that I've learned so far. And still learning. I've definitely not mastered it.
What are some of the tools or the methods or things that you've tried that have helped you on that journey, like understanding how people are motivated and building people up? What's helped you in that journey?
Yeah. So there's I don't do them anywhere near enough. And I'm trying to get back into the groove of it. The rat race always gets us in our what we know we should be doing. But one-on-ones are massive. And doing them outside of the office, doing them outside of, your normal work area. And so that's where it's become tricky for us is like, okay, well, not to do it at the yard, not to do it at the office, and not to do it on a job site. So it makes it difficult when there's so many moving parts in a day. But one-on-ones, and we use a structure in our one-on-ones called PPF, or personal professional financial goals. And so I have a form that I'd send out to my guys and say, hey, we're going to be doing a PPF here next week or in a few days. And I want you to go through and fill out your personal professional financial goals, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. That comes from another training organization called Cardone Ventures. And so using that framework, it's just a really great way to understand, like, hey, what are your goals, and how can I help you achieve them? And then that, like, just taking that one-on-one, and then also spending that hour of time just learning more about them, and asking them questions, not trying to make it about you or the business, but trying to leave the business completely out of it and just finding out more about that person. I think that's been the biggest tool that has helped me learn more about my guys.
Yeah, that's really good. And if you didn't hear it, Greg, you said that was Cardone Ventures, like Grant Cardone.
Yeah. So Grant Cardone owns Cardone Enterprises. He's partners with Brandon Dawson in Cardone Ventures. Cardone Ventures is the organization that I learned the PPF from. You can read Natalie Dawson's book called Teamwork. It's a great book on learning more about how to connect and how to manage people.
Yeah, great. Well, looking back, I know you're probably spend most of your time looking forward, and we've been looking back a lot. And so one of the things that that I mentioned earlier is that you have a big goal, looking ahead in the next few years of where you guys are headed. What's do you think is maybe like the next step in that goal? You have a financial goal of growing, what's the next step to get there?
Yeah. So right now is kind of where we're at right now is we're looking at winter. And what that's going to do to and how our new marketing strategy, and you and I have talked about our marketing strategy going into this winter and how we're going to shift some things around to try to maintain our workflow, because historically our workflow drops off heavily through mid-December to the beginning of March. And so if we can increase our workflow to at least break even, because historically we've been losing money through those, that 10 to 12 weeks. And so if we can maintain, then that will give me the confidence to continually grow throughout the year, and not just do a kind of an explosive growth strategy in the beginning of the year and then, standardize everything by the end of summer and then, coast till winter and try to survive the winter. So, and I have a lot of confidence in our strategy going forward this winter. And so once that goes into play, building up our sales team, building up our field team, I think is going to be the process where, standardizing everything. That's what we've been working on this summer, is standardizing our sales training process, standardizing the sales process itself, standardizing each crew. So every crew has the same equipment, same truck, same trailer, same grapple truck. So that way anyone can hop on any truck and any team and know exactly where all the tools are, know exactly what needs, and be able to fill. And then on each team, there is a standard role. So you have your crew leader, you have your assistant crew leader, and then you have your number 3. And so everyone goes into those roles knowing exactly what their roles are when you arrive to a job site and what your roles are when you're leaving a job site. And so standardizing all of that process to be able to scale the business as we really hone in our marketing strategy is kind of the steps that we're working on next or right now.
Good. Yeah, getting those systems in place is really critical. We've definitely learned that over and over again as we've been growing too. Just thinking kind of personally, do you have any daily rituals or things that you do on a regular basis that you find to be really helpful or important? And again, it could be for you personally or you as part of the business, since they're all very intertwined.
Yeah. So the tree industry is very heavily dependent on your sales team. because it's very easy to mess up an estimate on time. And so therefore putting the crew back way, it can really upset the balance of the schedule of, the workflow, the production. So we train every morning with our sales team. So 7 o'clock to 7:15, we have our morning stand down with the crew. We go over work for the day, and then we go over just wins from the day before. So we take about 5 minutes, 7 to 7:05. We go over the workload for the day. Who's going where on what team. If there's anyone, taking vacation, do we need to shift the crews around or whatever? That's all figured out by the ops manager before the next day, as far as who's going where. And so in the morning, it's just making sure the guys know where they're going, making sure there's no questions regarding the workload for the day. And then from there, 7:10 or 7:05 to roughly 7:15, we do morning wins. So, just little wins like, hey, I got to do my first tree. So a new climber got to do his first tree or first removal, or, like for instance, my win, my daughter for today, my daughter, stepped up in speed levels on her STASIC. And so yesterday, so that was super cool for me. So that was my win for the day. So it doesn't have to be work related. It's just, building that culture of winning and success and good attitude and that kind of thing, starting that off first thing in the morning. And then from there, cut the crews loose, 7:30 sales training starts. We do, and Monday through Friday, we have specific things that we do. So like on Mondays, we go over fact finding. And so, we drill and rehearse the fact finding questions that we outline in pairs. And then from there, we'll go over, and on Tuesdays, we'll do like pricing. On Wednesdays, we do different types of objection handling, or like a specific objection handling, like, I need time to think about it. And then when Thursdays would be a different objection, Fridays would be another objection. So that way, the team is getting constant training. It's the consistency that we need, that we see that best keeps a sales guy sharp. So those are probably the two biggest things that I think that we do on a daily basis that make a lot of impact over time, is because that consistency of building team camaraderie over winning and success, and then the training for the sales guys that they're always keeping their skills sharp.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, I got another question for you. I know you are really into outdoor sports and activities. What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
I would say probably what most people would assume the craziest thing is breaking 60 miles an hour on a skateboard. So I used to, in high school and in college, I used to race downhill skateboards or longboards. And so there was a handful of times on a certain run that we would do. If we grouped up in a line called training, we could break 60 miles an hour, and that was pretty wild.
That would be wild. Wow. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're kind of wrapping up here, but I have a final question that I always like to ask, and I'm really curious to hear your answer on this one. So I want you to imagine for a minute that you are, it could be some years down the line, and you're being presented your lifetime achievement award. It's like it's like you're at the Emmys or the Oscars or something like that. And here you're getting this award, and you go up on stage, and it's now your time to to give your speech. Who are you thanking?
Oof. I would say there's probably two main people that I would want to be thanking, and that would be my wife, number one, for supporting me, encouraging me, and pushing me to do better, not just in business, but as a husband, as a father, and always encouraging me to grow, and never saying, hey, you shouldn't do that, or hey, you should slow down, or hey, you should back off of this. She's never said no to any of my crazy ideas. If I told her I wanted to go 60 miles an hour down a hill on a skateboard, she'd be like, okay, just please wear a helmet. And so number one would be my wife, Anna. Number two would probably be the mentors that I've had along the way. that have given me the advice that I've been able to learn from their mistakes so that I didn't have to learn those mistakes myself. And so I'm sure at that point it would be a number of different mentors. Matt Naylor's given me some phenomenal advice. And I've met some other guys along the way that have also done given some solid advice as well. I think mentors, 100% mentors in business are probably the biggest thing that have helped me grow to where I am at today.
Well, since you said that, how have you found what are the best ways that you've come across the right mentors, or has it just been kind of serendipity that you just kind of stumbled into it?
Honestly, it's just been by happen chance. Like Matt Naylor, when I met Matt, we were doing a job for him on his property, and I was in a real dark place in business, and I got real upset because of some circumstances happened on his job, and he lovingly lit me up in the sense that I started to treat him poorly because of the circumstances, and they weren't anyone's fault. And he talked to me for about an hour about how, like, that's just not the way you handle clients. It's not the way you do this. And I was just like, who is this guy? Where is this coming from? And so it was that put like completely 180'd my entire attitude and direction of business. And kept us and put us back on a path of being the best tree company in the valley. And so it's been by happenstance. I think most of my mentors have come from clients that we've done work for, that I've met through, doing an actual tree job for them. And then I find out, there's always something different about them. Those guys that are, own businesses or have been there and done that once I start talking to, I realize I'm like, hey, there's a lot more to you. And I'll try to dig into it and find out more, because I know that there's a lot that I can learn from.
Yeah, that's good. One thing that I heard you say without you actually saying it is that you really have to be open and receptive to be able to hear those kind of messages too, right? So you had your eyes open, and when Matt had that conversation with you, it would have been really easy to just kind of shut him down. You were already in kind of a bad mood, it sounds like, and you could have just completely disregarded everything he said and just lost that connection. But instead, you were open, you recognized there was something of value within him and also with what he was saying, and you learned a lot from it and were able to apply it to your business and really grow from it. But if you're not open, if you're not looking for that, then you could completely miss it. So I think that's, even though you didn't say it out loud, I feel like that's also part of what you were saying that's really valuable there.
Definitely. Yeah. It's always being open to learn. I know I'm not the best at anything, and so I'm always trying to learn more and listen to the people that can give that advice. 100%. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Gregg, this has been a really great conversation. I'm so glad you were able to join us. If anyone wants to learn more about your business, Rent-A-Monkey, what's the best way to do that?
I would say just give me a phone call. My phone number, my personal cell phone, is 385-266-6640. That comes to me directly, not my office or anything like that. So if you're wanting, more information about the tree industry or, just business in general, I'm happy to talk business as much as I can and share the advice I can. People have been open with me in the past, and so I'd love to be open and help others when I can.
That's amazing, Gregg. Thanks so much for sharing that. And of course, if you just want to browse what Rent-A-Monkey has going on online, you can just Google search him or go to www.rentamonkey.com and explore the website too. All right, Gregg. Well, hey, again, thank you. This has been awesome. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. I appreciate it too.
Thanks for listening to the Home Pro Podcast. Be sure to click subscribe to be notified of future episodes. We'll see you again next time.